Pete Hidy calls this Jim Leisenring fly a flymph. It is the blue iron wingless. It's not a dry fly. It's not a nymph. It might be categorized closer to a spider. I am tying it on a number 14 wet hook with claret thread. The recipe in Mike Valla's book calls for either claret or crimson. It has a short 2-barb tail, and it's supposed to be a dark honey dun. So you're working with all kinds of variables there when you start talking about dun colors and what is a honey dun and what is a dark honey dun. But 2 barbs for me, rooster hackle feather. This is not a contemporary genetically engineered feather, but it is a rooster feather. I'm going to wax my thread with some cobbler's wax, very much in the spider tradition, but I'm doing it more to get it sticky because the body is covered with a thin mole hair rib. It's a little bit more than a rib because I'm going to apply it a little bit thicker than a rib, but I am going to try to apply it very thinly at the tail so that the color of the thread does show through, and then just a sparse covering of mole fur. It comes off of this mole skin. I just plucked it off, pulled off a little clump of it, trying to pull off just a sparse little bit of amount of that hair, and having the wax on the thread makes it easier to dub onto the thread, easier than even spitting on it. But just a thin, sparse dubbing, very much in the tradition of a North Country spider. There are a couple options for the hackle. I'm going to call this a dark honey dun feather. So the recipe calls for either a honey dun feather with red tips or a dark honey dun feather. And I couldn't find any red tipped hen feathers in my collection of hen skins. And I think this is going to work just as well for a dark honey dun. I have stripped all the fluff off of the bottom of the feather. I am going to grab this feather with my hackle plier, and I'm going to just leave enough hackle on here for what I think will be the appropriate amount of hackle for this feather. I'm hackling it probably a little bit stronger than I would a North Country spider, but 2 wraps would be plenty. If I get to 3, I'll be okay with that. So using the hackle plier, grabbing the feather from the tip end, separating out, and then cutting a little triangle. And this can be cut before or after you tie it in. And it could also be tied in by the butt end, but I like to do my hackles, my soft hackles, by the tip or by the tip end, and then tie in that little triangle, cut it before I tie it in, pull back on all the hackle barbs, and wrap until I'm out of barbs. Or I could wrap until I have 2 wraps and then tie off, which looks like about what I'm getting. Then I will wrap over the top of that stem. It's called a rachis. And then I'm pull back on everything, all of the hackle fibers. I've got one hanging out here underneath of the eye. I don't know what that's about. I may have to clip that out afterwards. And then just wrap up over the end of that stem. Wrap the head. Ideally, this would just snap out, and I'm going to try to do that. There we go. And I can just kind of fluff the hackle. Get it out from underneath. That might be a little bit long, but for a soft hackle fly, I'm going to be okay with it. Come back in here and trim out that one fiber, one barb that's awkwardly caught. I'll go ahead and whip finish. And I only need a 3 or so turn whip finish on it because I'm going to cement it. I just take my scissors and push them against the thread to cut that out. And a fluff. Now when it gets wet, it's going to lean back, but the idea is that when you strip this through the water, that hackle will pulsate and give it a living kind of feel. I'm going to put a single drop of diluted goop on the head. Stick a needle in my jar, grab a drop. Now it does look darker right now while it's wet, but when that dries, it will dry clear, the color of the thread. I want to make sure that I didn't get any of that goop in the eye of my fly, so I'll take a hackle feather, push it through the eye, and make sure that it is clean and tip it ready.